Are you a step parent and or parent with teens looking to go to college? Are you wondering how to afford one of the biggest milestones in your stepchild's life? In today's episode of the Stepmom Wisdom Circle, we're going to look at how has the shift in FAFSA application process affected potential college students, particularly those in step families. We're going to look at what are some of the common mistakes people make when completing the FAFSA application and how they can avoid them. We look at what qualities or characteristics colleges are actually looking for in the prospective students today. We'll look at what are some specific steps families and students can take in the freshman and sophomore years of high school to prepare. And then we'll look at, given the financial and emotional investment in the college application process, how can families best manage these process or these pressures to avoid overwhelming their high school students. Welcome to the Stepmom Wisdom Circle, a place where we discuss, discover, and explore the complex world of being a stepmom. I'm your host, Claudette Chenevert, the Stepmom Coach, bringing you over 3 decades of stepmom experience and professional coaching wisdom. I'm the author of the Stepmom's Book of Boundaries, How and Where to Draw the Line for a Happier and Healthier Step Family, as well as the host, producer, and presenter of the annual Ultimate Step Family Summit. As a stepmom myself, I'm well versed in the unique joys and challenges this role brings. In this shared space, we'll tackle everything from setting healthy boundaries, managing conflict, to mastering conversation skills that foster the relationship you desire. Each episode is crafted to empower you on this journey, reminding you that you're not alone. Let's dive into the wisdom that comes with being a stepmom together. Welcome to the circle. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Stepmom Wisdom Circle. I remember when we moved to Virginia with 3 teens in high school. We hadn't thought about the college process or how we would pay for it. We were caught off guard at the cost and all the steps needed just for them to get in. I definitely wish we would have had Denise and Mindi in our lives back then to help us. It would have definitely saved us a lot of money. Still, we're glad that we were able to send and pay for our kids' education. My 2 guests, Denise Thomas and Mindi Trimble, are experts in the field of helping you and your kids send your high schoolers to college with as little to no debt. Impossible, you think? Listen on. Denise Thomas is a TEDx speaker, international best-selling author, and mentor to parents of college-bound teenagers. Denise inspires, educates, and equips parents to actively support their children to live a life of financial freedom. From bankruptcy to finding a way for her 2 homeschooled children to attend college on 17 scholarships, totaling more than $199,000. She's on a mission to help other families do the same, change lives, leave legacies, and flip the student debt statistics in the U.S. My next guest is Mindi Trimble. She is the bubble wrap of college prep. She mentors students on how to intentionally pop out from the application crowd without popping under pressure on their way to their best fit college. Besides increasing acceptance rate, Mindi's Acceptance Academy program has helped students win scholarships and financial aid offers ranging from 5 to 30 times what they invest in her guidance. When not singing her students' praises, Mindi's flexing her Phi Beta Kappa from UC Berkeley skills at trivia nights, hiking with her family and German Schiegel, and using her formal opera training to make up silly versions of soprano arias. So make sure to listen to the end to have all the links for these special programs that Mindi and Denise are offering. So let's get started. So hi, Denise and Mindi. I am so excited to have you both here on a topic that I think is so important and that we don't talk about enough. Kids or stepkids going off to college, and how can we afford it? I know for us, it was a huge question, and it was really, we ended up paying for it. But if we had known what you're going to share today, it would have made a big difference. So before we jump in our topic, I want to ask, let's start with Denise. How did you get interested in working with parents of kids going off to college?
Well, thank you so much, Claudette, for having both of us on the show. We are so excited about our topics because it is really important. For me, I got interested out of sheer desperation for my own family. I'll be honest with you. It was just, I had to do it. I had to figure out how were my kids going to go to school. And for me, in order to do that, I had to do a lot of research, and I learned how to do research. I researched thousands upon thousands of hours. I was up at night from dinner time all the way till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, almost every night, researching how is it that some kids get to go to college without parents paying for it, without student loans, without being that college athlete that gets paid to go to college, without being a genius, and without being so destitute that you get free school. By the way, all of those are myths. We believe them to be true, but they're not. And that was the biggest turning point for me in my research, is realizing that what we've been told for the last 30 or 40 decades is a lie.
Wow.
College can be affordable. There are plenty of options. I tend to specialize in one particular route. There's plenty of routes. So when I was figuring this out for my own family, we thought originally that we were going to pay for college with our 401k, with our investments. A lot of families do that. I work with financial firms because they've got families telling them, oh yeah, just take out $100,000 for my kid to go to school. It's not a good idea.
No.
I didn't know that at the time, but the stock market crashed on us and the rest of the world, and we suddenly had no money. And my husband was also laid off at the same time, and it was just a kind of a trifecta of sorry, not your problem, but it is your problem kind of problems. And so we had no choice but to figure this out. And I did figure it out for my own kids. I have 2 kids. They were both homeschooled all the way through high school. And then for them to go to college, they attended college on 17 scholarships, totaling more than $199,000. They each came out of college with 4 years debt-free and with cash left over. My daughter had $4,000 left over, and my son had $10,000 left over. That's real money. Think about what your kids can do with that as a young adult, not starting out with college debt. It was a game changer for both of them. Now, I had no intention of bringing this to the masses. I was done. I did the happy dance, seriously. My son's graduation, I'm the one dancing, okay? I'm done. But because we were not paying for college, we sold our house and we bought a 42-foot motorhome and went full-time RVing for 5 years. Because when you're not paying for your kids to go to school, it is your money and you get to play with it. But the whole time we were traveling, Claudette, I got text messages and phone calls asking, okay, so here's where we are. What do we do next? Mm-hmm. My cousin told me I needed to talk to you. What did you do? I didn't know what worked at that time. I just know that it did. Are my kids special? Absolutely not. And I know that a lot of families will look at that almost $200,000 and say, oh, your kids must be geniuses. My kid applied to 40 scholarships and won none. No. Half of those scholarships, literally $100,000 worth, did not ask for GPA or test scores. But I found myself copying and pasting. This is what we did. Go for it. And after a while, I realized, this is working for other people. And at one point, my husband turns to me and says, we've always had a small business of some kind. What can you do while we're on the road? I said, I'm already doing it. I might as well get paid for it. So that's when Cracking the Code College went online for all of the United States. If you live here, if you're a U.S. citizen, this program could be for you. It is not a good fit for every family, but for many, it's a miracle. It's really awesome.
Well, I am so looking forward to hearing more about this. Like I said, I wish I had known before because it would have been a game changer for us as well. So let's start with you. Go with you, Mindi. So tell us, how did you get started in coaching high schoolers to get ready for college?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me back. And I'm super excited to be here with Denise because I feel like what we do is kind of like peanut butter and jelly. It goes together well. And so I actually got started in my current business going all the way back to, academic tutoring that I was doing as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. I continued to do that. And when I decided to go back for a second bachelor's degree in opera performance, I knew that I wanted to continue to have a job to pay the bills for that second and ultimately third degree. I ended up getting a master's degree in opera performance as well. And so I began my career as an SAT coach. I was a standardized test prep coach. And so, it was in working with my students while I was going back and getting my music degrees, I would develop these great relationships. And then, they would ask me, well, hey, Mindi, can you help me work on my college essays? And so it kind of felt natural. I loved writing. I loved coaching beyond, the standardized test. I mean, after all, I was sitting there and the whole point of me wanting to do all this academic tutoring and standardized test prep coaching was to help them go to college because I loved college and I wanted them to have that experience. And so, I'm coaching, I'm teaching lessons. I was actually a very early online coach. I began coaching online in 2011, and I've been coaching on Zoom since 2015, so way before the pandemic. And so what I was noticing though was that, I was going on these auditions. I myself had to reapply to college the second time. So I was using what I knew, I was using what I was learning and researching, just like Denise. I was consuming all the content out there from great minds and thinkers on college essays. And there was one particular audition where I was there and I was wearing pantyhose. So I don't think a lot of singers are wearing pantyhose auditions anymore. So that kind of dates me a little bit, but that's fine. But the waistband of my pantyhose was too old. And my pantyhose started to fall down my legs as I'm singing this extremely hard aria. And I'm just, I made it through. I did not get called back. But I got out of that audition and I'm like, okay, I can work and spend thousands of dollars and hours making my voice sound a certain way. And then, it's the elastic gives out and all of a sudden, that's bye-bye audition. And I thought, that was my moment where I was like, okay, working with students and helping them stand out, from a sea of sameness is what is really making my heart sing. This is making my spirit kind of slink lower than my pantyhose. Thankfully, I made it out of there. They did not go below the hemline. Okay. But so that was it. That was the moment where I decided, I think I'm going to shift my focus more to exclusively helping students with the college application process because I wasn't passionate about the test scores. I was passionate about helping them kind of shape their stories and put everything together in a package that makes, this more of a rite of passage rather than a big long list of boxes they're checking off to try to get into, X US News and World Report top ranked college or some highly rejective college on their list. Like really finding what's best for them.
Oh, wow. I love both of your stories. The pantyhose one is like, wow, that is one.
It's true.
Yeah. And I believe you. That is so funny. So how, there's a lot of ways, that kids can go to college. Like essay writing is an important one. We're talking about scholarships. At one point, Mindi, you and I talked about FAFSA, right? Mm-hmm. And I think from the last time we talked, there's a lot of stuff that went like haywire.
Oh, yes.
Type of thing. So what happened with FAFSA? Tell us about it. And what can we do about it?
Yes. The good news is that you have two people that are going to be talking to you here about the FAFSA from kind of different perspectives. But when I came on the show with you last summer, the new FAFSA application had not rolled out, but I kind of, alluded to, hey, it might be a little messy. It was more than a little messy. In fact, last week, there was an Associated Press title that called it catastrophic and botched in the same sentence. Okay. So it has been a massive, massive failure of a rollout. Still, even despite the U.S. Department of Education's campaign in April to increase the number of FAFSA applications, they are still down 30%. Just the applications themselves are down 30% over what they were last year. And this is a free application for federal student aid. And so it costs nothing. For public universities is the only way that you can be evaluated to receive need-based aid, or in a lot of cases, merit-based aid. So that's free money, grants and scholarships from those institutions. And, I think I'm going to actually let Denise talk a little bit more about, there's a lot of myths about the FAFSA that she and I, in our respective positions, are busting all of the time. But because Denise deals with scholarships, she's getting a lot of that. But I will just say that I am still working really hard with the students that I have, that I worked with to get into college, who are seniors now and graduating. I'm still kind of chasing them around and saying, have you applied for, have you applied? It's not a waste of time. I promise it's worth it. It's better to have done it and not need it than to need it and not have done it, especially since it's been such a mess. Who knows? You could be the one that squeaks through the cracks and gets money. Just my bottom line is to do it, but I'm going to pass the mic to Denise. And
you're right. You're right, Mindi. It is a mess. It's been a mess this year, but so first of all, my background is computer programming. That is my degree. Honey, they could have handed it to me and I'd have done a better job. You know what I'm saying? It's that bad. It's so incredibly bad. It's not funny. One of the first, so it had a lot of glitch issues just with people getting through the application, which, by the way, the new application, you should be able to complete it in 30 minutes or less. It's that quick. There's hardly any questions in there, really.
Yeah, it's half the questions that it used to be.
It's super, super easy. There, in the past, one of the issues with filing FAFSA that families would encounter is that it was a little difficult to figure out whether you were filling out the parent part or the kid part of the application. And so there were times when parents would put the wrong numbers in the wrong box, and that would mess up the results that they got. Okay. But there was a fix for that. But now it's really easy to tell because you only get the parent part and your kid only gets the teen part. So you can't screw this up, is what I'm saying. Okay. Now there was a question, or is a question on there that is asked in a poor way, that for some communities, you're going to answer it wrong just because of the community you live in. I'll give you that quick example. There is a question that asks, in 2022, which was post-COVID, did the child receive the free lunch at school. Okay. They're not asking, did your kid get the free lunch at school? That's not really the question, but that is the question. So districts or entire schools where everybody gets the free lunch, parents are checking the yes box. No way, Jose. That's not the question. Because if you check that box, the entire application comes to a dead halt. The assumption is that you are so need-based destitute that we don't need to know anything else. And here's what's going to happen if you did that. Because they have caught on, because the IRS, the government eventually catches on to these screw-ups, your kid's application is going to get flagged for verification. Now, flagged for verification is only a little bit like an IRS audit. Luckily, there's nobody coming to your house, but you're going to have to submit actual IRS stuff and maybe even bank statements and stuff. So answer the question correctly. Now, why families, like you said, Mindi, like 30% less are applying this year? I have a foggiest notion. I really don't know. I think maybe it's because they've heard that there have been a lot of problems, and so they're just kind of waiting for whatever. But it's an easy thing to fill out. There are scholarships tied to it, and I'll give you an idea of some really big ones. A lot of states offer their own state merit-based scholarship. A lot of states. Now, that scholarship actually has its own application, but the state doesn't want you to use that. The state wants you to file FAFSA, and then just like on the FAFSA, you've got a 4-digit code for each school. Well, there's a 4-digit code for that scholarship. They want you to use the FAFSA. So here's the problem. If you don't file the FAFSA and give them that code for the scholarship, if the state runs out of money that year or any year that you're filing FAFSA or not filing it because, hey, they gave me a scholarship, the kids who did not file FAFSA are the ones who get knocked out of getting that scholarship that year or some portion of it. My son was one of those who, thankfully, we did file FAFSA and he was able to keep his, but a lot of kids that year did not get their money because they didn't file FAFSA with the purpose of thinking about that scholarship. So there's a lot of reasons. And here's the other thing. I've heard some families say, oh, I don't want the government knowing what I make. Honey, the government knows what you make. They know everything about you. Big Brother's been watching for a long time. You're not going to escape this. Just file the form. Okay. Yeah. It's really easy. So that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah. You know, the last thing I'll say there is, you know, I have some ideas about why the numbers are so low. I mean, the rollout kept getting pushed back. Typically, Claudette, for anybody listening to this, it should be that on October 1st of this year, that was always the day. It was one of the very first deadlines that I would prepare my families for. Be like, okay, before any of our essays are due, I need you to get on this FAFSA stuff. Start getting it together, okay? Because you want to be first out of the gate because it's first come, first served. So because that deadline kept getting pushed back, well after kids were all done with their applications, right? It didn't, you know, it wasn't until the end of the year. And even then it didn't even roll out. There was, you know, the whole internet crashed when people tried to access it. So I think, you know, I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, just like Denise said, I mean, at this point, it's kind of, it's the Wild West. So let's go see what you can claim.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, I mean, it's hard for parents and for teenagers to know, like, what am I supposed to do, or what's the good process, or am I too late, too early? And so, Denise, I want to ask you, I know you work with the parents of the kids that are going to go to college. So why is it important for the families to have college paid on a scholarship? Because, you know, I know some people who will say, I don't want to bother. It's too much headache, or I don't want the government to know how much I'm making, or whatever. And I'm thinking specifically for step families where, we have two families trying to apply for college. And so how can you help these parents to get scholarships for their kids?
Well, if you think about it, with regard to step families, there's going to be a bit of confusion unless all the adults involved have a conversation, a civil conversation about this and have the child's best interest at heart. It's going to get hairy. Okay. College is expensive. I don't care where they're going. It's still going to cost you some dollars. So merit-based scholarships can be very helpful in quelling some of that, let's call it animosity or distrust, or he's paying or she's paying more or less than me, that kind of thing. Yeah. Or my family's bigger than your family. I shouldn't have to pay as much, whatever it is. Scholarships do a lot of things that are positive. I had a girlfriend of mine who is a business coach, and she makes $100,000 on a weekend. And she said, Denise, why do my kids need scholarships? I can just pay for it. I said, yes, you can. I said, but there's a few things to understand about scholarships. First of all, it's a win. Everybody likes winners. And I didn't really come to grips with how this really works until my son was going through a lot of different processes like this. He attended college on 8 scholarships. Well, in his freshman year, spring semester, he was in the Air Force ROTC, and his ROTC commanding officer called him into the office one day. Now, my son has never been in this office. I don't think he'd ever met the commanding officer. He called me to say, Mama, pray for me. I don't know what I did wrong. So he gets into the office and he's standing at attention, and the commanding officer is looking at a piece of paper on his desk. And without looking up, he says, son, why are you here? What does my son say? You called me into the office? He stammered, what do I say? And then he repeats himself, why are you here? And when he looked up, my son could see what he had on his desk. And what he had was my son's resume that he had submitted to the university 18 months earlier. On that application, on that resume, was a list of the 8 scholarships he had won, including the National Merit Scholarship. The commanding officer said, why are you here? We don't get your caliber of student here. You could write your own ticket. Why are you here?
Wow.
As humans, we are wired to pick winners. When you were on the playground in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, choosing teams for Red Rover, you were picking the strongest, fastest kids. I was picked last. I was the skinny one. But we're wired that way. Sure, now and then we will bet on the underdog. But if you bet on the underdog all the time, you will lose all the time. That's not how we're wired. We're wired to pick winners. So when there are wins on that resume, it enhances the opportunity to get more wins. That goes all the way through getting employment, not just seeing those scholarships, but internships, leadership roles in different organizations, different things, community service. All of these things are considered wins when it comes to others who are going to pick winners. So that's one really important aspect of scholarships. But another one that parents don't understand is that there has been a few studies that show there's an inverse relationship. Amount of money parents decide to pay for college versus your child's final GPA. The more money the parent pays, the lower the child's GPA is.
Wow.
Now, we would think, oh, you don't have to go to work. You can study. But it doesn't work that way. They will rest because they don't have to work. They will go partying a little more than they should. And yes, there's the anomaly, the child whose parents pay 100% and the kid still gets a 3.5 or 3.8 GPA. But on average, that's not what happens. So there's several reasons why parents should consider scholarships versus either footing the bill outright or co-signing for those student loans?
Wow. That is really interesting, Denise. I'm really fascinated with the correlation as to why, scholarship isn't just about getting free money, but it's the wins, the outcome for not just for college, but for later in life as well, right? So yeah, I can see that as being an important lesson for the kids to learn and for the parents as well to look for the scholarships. Mindi, I would like for you to maybe, piggyback off what Denise said and how, as a coach for teenagers, how can you help the parents not argue about, getting the scholarships or even getting into college?
Right. So depending on when a family comes to me for assistance, and typically I will get either parents of only children who are very nervous and who are like, okay, I want to provide options for my child that I didn't get. I want them to have more choices, or I just want to start early. I also get quite a few families with it's a second child. And they were like, okay, I learned what I didn't know the first time. I did my best. I would like to get some professional help this round. So I get a lot of variety, but I will say that, the earlier, and I know this is something Denise believes in too, the earlier you start this whole process or thinking about it, the more time you have to explore and also gamify it. So the pressure is not so intense. And I love when students come to me earlier, because using scholarships does two things. First of all, if they win, great, there's money for college. But also, I want to be teaching them how to write great application essays before the big ones, right? Like, let's practice interviewing skills. Let's practice talking about yourself. Students don't learn how to write about themselves in high school. That is just not part of the English curriculum in this country. And so, the earlier that we can start working on that, it could win them scholarships. It's certainly going to make them better writers, and it's certainly going to make them better writers for the specific brand of writing that is required to get into a university. Yeah. And so they may, I've had students, be able to reuse some scholarship essays in, maybe not in their entirety, but we'll pull certain stories and reuse them, in what we ultimately submit to colleges. And so I think, with parents, I really talk about, like, okay, we're going to get to the college stuff eventually, but all of this is practice in working our way towards that. We're doing more exploring. We're looking at the scholarships that are available. Sometimes the scholarship lens can be a great way for me to, help a student figure out what they want to do for a career, what they want to, what specific majors, just by looking at the various scholarship, organizations that are out there. So I think with families, and in particular families with divorced parents and step families, I work with many. And so it's really not, my coaching practice is not so different with, divorced parents. It's ultimately just like what Denise said, you have to have a conversation, and I just need to know who are my point people. Sometimes it's one parent. Sometimes it's all four. Sometimes it's two. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as, we kind of establish that we are team child together. They are in charge. They're the captain. And that's a big piece of my work. Like, I make sure everybody knows that I'm not the team captain. I'm the ref. So that can be very helpful for step families. Like,
yes,
we hired a lawyer to get through this. We're going to hire you, and I'm the mediator. So, and I that is true. I think with some step families, I end up on a little bit more phone calls and check-ins and things, but ultimately I'm the referee. We're on team child, and they're calling the shots. And I am ultimately going to defend whatever topics they want to write about for their essays and that kind of thing. So.
I love it because, working with stepmoms and stepfamilies, one of the things I hear a lot about college is the cost. They are very worried about, I can't afford it. How are we going to pay for it? We have to take out a mortgage. Or if I pay for it, then the other spouse, the other parent is going to ask for more money. It can be it can be very ugly when it comes time to send the kids to school. I love, Mindi, that you said it's team kid, team teenager. You're focusing on making sure these kids get what they need to go to college without stressing out, and for the parents to not have another argument, another thing to argue over, so that the kids can go to college.
Right.
And so I know we talked about some myths. Could we talk a little bit more about the myths? Because for me, that was like something that stuck in my head. Like, I want to hear about the myths. Like, what are the myths about paying and having your kid go to college? So Denise,
there's probably, there's more than a dozen, because I know I've tried to list as many as I could in the past. But Mindi has found this to be true as well. We have heard for decades, wait till junior year for that. Wait till junior year for that. Oh my goodness. Mindy's in the same boat. We every time we hear a parent say that, we want to slap them, because, we're repeating the mantra that has been repeated, I kid you not, 3 to 4 decades. Here's the problem. And that is anything related to college, whether it's taking the ACT or SAT exams, whether it's thinking about what colleges to attend, whether it's having a conversation, blah, blah, blah. Regardless, if it has the word college associated with it, quote, wait till junior year for that. You will hear that from your high school counselor. 99% guaranteed. And it took me a while to figure out why. First of all, I don't want their job, so let me start with that. High school counselors, we put too much emphasis / weight on thinking or believing it's their job to get your kid into college with scholarships. It is not, I'm telling you, it is not their job.
Nope.
They have a big job, bigger than that. That's a piece of their job, maybe. And some high schools have 2 counselors. They may have an actual legitimate singular individual that is only for the college counseling. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Maybe at that high school, they start working with kids from freshman year. I would hope so. But for the vast majority, if you tell them to wait till junior year for that, they have now cut that particular work in half, because they don't have to talk to anybody in freshman or sophomore year about anything related to college. They can wait till junior year to hand them that ACT, SAT packet, right? So that, to me, is one of the biggest myths that really hurts families. I work with families, with parents, with kids from as young as middle school, because there are things that you can help your kids with in middle school that will set them up for success for both my program and Mindy's, getting started early in high school. So don't wait till junior year. Now, is it too late if you call us in senior year? No. There's still stuff we can help you with. But at the same time, if a financial officer calls me and says, hey, Denise, I've got a client, their kid is going to XYZ college next year and they have a $40,000 gap. Can you help them? My answer is, I can help them, but I don't walk on water. You will not fill a $40,000 gap per year once you have made all of the decisions that affected that 40 grand. It's too late. We can't turn back time. There's still plenty of money to be had, but not, $160,000 plus. So don't wait till junior year. In addition, being in college is not too late. There are academic merit-based scholarships available for current college students, graduate school, professional school. And on the other spectrum, as early as kindergarten.
Wow.
Doesn't matter what grade your kids are in. There are opportunities, but you need to learn how to seek them out and how to win.
That is great information.
Yeah. That's, I mean, by far, that is like the biggest myth that Denise and I wish we could wave a magic wand and erase from the face of the earth. I think in my business in particular, a big myth, and actually this would go with scholarships too. It's going to influence scholarships. The myth that the well-rounded student or the spike student, that's another term that kind of got popular, 5 to 10 years ago, is that those are the students who get into college, right? So a student, well-rounded, we know what that means. Like they're the Renaissance human, they do all the things, they're in all the clubs. That is very tired and cliche. We are all very aware in 2024 of what burnout looks like. And we do not want that. We do not want to raise teenagers into a life of burnout. So that's off the table. So admissions officers don't want to see the kid who does everything. That they're a master of none. They're a, person of all trades, master of none, right? And then the other myth about the spike student. So a spike, if you don't know what that means, is like having this really, really just over the top achievement before they get to college. So they're already doing cancer research, or they've founded 5 nonprofits or even 1 nonprofit. Now, I do work with students that come to me and they're like, I have founded this nonprofit. And okay, that's great. But that is not a requirement to get into your best fit school, your dream school. And so, I'm going to shout out, I just adore this woman. You can find her online at Admissions Mom. And she likes to talk about star-shaped students. And so, we're on YouTube. So I'm just going to hold up my hand or a hand, right? You want to be sort of well-rounded and have a couple of points like that where you demonstrate intentional, impactful involvement. Okay. So intention, impact, and involvement, not superficial interest, not, just kind of, oh, I'm kind of interested in this. And I'm, that's not going to cut it. So again, that's why I think, well-rounded or spiky, not so much. You want to be more star-shaped. So you want to devote intentional time into a couple areas, and you want to be able in your writing to talk about how your deep experiences in each of those 2 to 3 areas and the lessons you've learned has informed the other. So it's those really interesting uncommon connections and those value lessons that you're learning in the intentional activities you're involved in. It's the demonstration of insight into how those areas inform the other. That is the kind of writing that gets you into college, because it's demonstrating critical thinking at an above average level. And so that's the bulk of my work, is really just doing the taffy pulling, like getting those high school students to kind of have those insights. Because again, we're not doing that kind of writing in high school. So it's even more to Denise's point that if you don't even start to think about the college list, if you haven't ever toured colleges, I mean, you can start touring colleges at any time. Just to walk around the campus. What do you think? You don't have to wait to junior year. And if you wait that long, then you're kind of robbing your student of the deep reflection time that's not only going to pay off in their application, but it's also going to be satisfying and confidence building for this big jumping off point into young adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, college is to prepare these young people into adulthood. And it takes a lot of time. It takes work. It takes dedication. I love that you said critical thinking. That's my big thing, helping people to think for themselves. Yeah, there's the danger they're going to think differently from you. that is a possibility, but at least they need to think for themselves and to do the work. And there's so much we could talk. I mean, we could talk about this for many, many hours. Unfortunately, I don't want to bombard everybody with everything. So instead, I would like for people to know, how can they reach you, Denise, with what you do? Because we're talking about parents who are looking for help to get the scholarships for their kids. So Denise, how can people reach you? And do you have anything that would help these parents?
Awesome. Well, I think even in a podcast, you can remember this: getadebtfreedegree.com. Getadebtfreedegree.com. That is my website. If you get a chance to get to the show notes, though, you'll have additional links as well as a free gift. It is a PDF. It's a checklist, 12 scholarship secrets, tips from prestigious scholarship judges. And what this is, it's a list of things that scholarship judges see that basically gets your scholarship application or your college application tossed in a waste bin. So check the box and make sure you've reviewed these things before you hit the submit key.
Perfect. And I will definitely have all this information in the show notes and a few more links so that people can get as much information they need from both of you. So Mindi, I know like you help a lot of teenagers, you have programs to help them. So tell us how people can reach you and what do you have to offer to our listeners?
Yes. So for Stepmom Coach Podcast listeners, you can go to minditrimble.com/podcast. And that's your treasure trove of links. So you're going to get links to signing up for my free bubble wrapped college planning timeline. There's also going to be information about my upcoming courses. I have one starting on May 19th and another starting on August 11th. And those are specifically for students who are looking to start college next fall. So those could be 11th graders, but it could be, non-traditional college students, and as well as lots of other information about how to work with me. But I want to highlight, there's a little special something in there that's only for podcast listeners. And so you can book a call to take a U Science Career and Discovery Aptitude Test. If you buy that on its own, it's $50, but this you would get for free. And not only will you get that aptitude test that goes way beyond those lame ones we used to take in high school, you will get a call with me to go over your results. So please sign up. I would love to meet you.
Oh, thank you both. I mean, I am so excited to be sharing this, and I hope a lot of people take advantage of it. Who doesn't like free money, and who doesn't like to have their kid prepared to be able to write? Because I agree, people have a hard time writing, and let's just say people have a hard time writing, period. And so getting ready for college is a big, huge milestone in a teenager's life. It's a milestone for the parents as well. So let's not, especially if you're an empty nester, it's a milestone for the parents as well. So it's a lot of wins for everybody. And so please, everybody, make sure to look at the show notes. Follow Denise Thomas at, I'll have the links in the show notes, and follow Mindi Trimble as well. Again, the links are in the show notes. Thank you both so much. Like I said, I wish I had both of you before my kids went to college, but now they have kids of their own. So I'll share it with my grandkids now. So just moving it another generation. So again, thank you both. I really appreciate everything you shared.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.